California budget deal between Governor Gavin Newsom and state lawmakers would provide most California taxpayers with hundreds of dollars in rebates to alleviate economic hardship from inflation. The $300 billion framework would include diesel tax suspension and $1,050 rebates.
Newsom says that's more money in your pocket to help you fill your gas tank and put food on the table. Joining us to discuss is Editor-in-Chief of The Real News, Max Alvarez, and Newsweek contributor Denise Long. Welcome to you both.
Thanks, good morning.
All right, Denise, this sounds pretty good to me. What, if anything, are the downsides of this?
Well, I'd certainly have to take a look at how this impacts the economics of the state overall. I believe they had a ginormous surplus, if you will, from quite a ways ago. I'm not opposed to states using their excess funds to actually support and undergird the citizens, considering in general and considering the times we are in right now. I'm curious about the extent to which these funds will be provided to undocumented migrants and illegal aliens, and the impact that could have on citizens and taxpayers overall.
What about the argument that if you live in California, if undocumented people are unable to get to the jobs working for inevitably documented people, or if they are dependent on the social safety net as a consequence of not being able to afford high-cost groceries and goods, that if they are let's say precarious and more inclined toward crime, or any of the arguments that you have, that it ultimately inures to the benefit of society for everyone in the state to be taken care of. And that's why these kind of programs in progressive states like California sometimes are extended to everyone who lives in the state.
Yeah, so my stance there is like the Honorable Barbara Jordan from Texas, who was commissioner of the Jordan Commission. And what she made clear, and at a time when our government had a common sense approach to immigration, what she made clear is that you are here illegally and you are thus entitled to no benefits. And I don't see how in this day and age where we're on record to break 2 million encounters at our southern border, how we can incentivize illegal migration to the United States.
Max, what do you think about this plan from Newsom? In a way, right, he's kind of upstaging, I guess, the national Democratic leaders like Joe Biden himself, who are not delivering for what many working people are struggling with, the higher prices of everything. Is Newsom kind of providing a model that Democrats should heed?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's hard to upstage Biden and the National Democrats right now. I could do that by going and singing The Temptations on the street corner right now. I mean, like,
please be our guest.
catch me out in front of City Hall later today, Baltimoreans. But two things that I would say. One, I don't know how this quickly became a conversation about, illegal immigration. All I would say is that, what I think defines, like me more as a leftist is that I am always looking to punch up, not punch down. Punching down at illegal immigrants, undocumented folks, is a tried and tested method to get working people to see one another as the enemy instead of looking at the very obvious bandits who are ripping us off. Whatever, you are saying, like whatever freeloading the right says is happening on account of undocumented migrants pales in comparison to the amount of money that corporations and the wealthy get to steal from the public coffers and stash in their pockets. It's not even close. So unless we're talking about that, the whole is this going to go to undocumented folks is an absolute BS point. Also, undocumented folks pay taxes. So let's shut up about that crap already. Let's keep our eye on the ball. Secondly,
no, we won't.
Would say, well, you're wrong. You're making a dumb, bad argument. That's what I would say to any working person who's watching here. They're trying to distract you from the people who are actually
for the left.
Well, let's Max finish, and then we'll let you respond, Denise.
Yeah, because I represent working people who are listening to people like you tell them, the wrong thing.
I'm a working class person, and it's not one crime over the other. It is both. When we talk about the fact that people are here illegally and they do get special set asides that American citizens do not get, that needs to be addressed. And when we talk about the fact that we have corporatocracy and oligarchs who are ripping off, as you say, the American public, that needs to be addressed as well. One does not wash the other.
Well, Denise, what about this
Well, it's
argument
not,
that there's
because
a
one is like astronomically bigger than the other. So you're talking about like our roof just
But it doesn't
collapsed,
wash
but I'm going
it.
to go focus on this leaky faucet in the bathroom. Like it's really no comparison here.
That's your
The other thing I would say, the other thing I would say is that there's actually a really, big opportunity here for anyone who wants to take it on the Democratic or the Republican side, because what we saw under COVID-19, under Trump, was actually incredibly paradigm shifting. If you look at the way the government responded to a crisis, first at COVID-19, and compare that to the 2008 financial crash. What Trump and then Biden did was they actually injected money directly into people's pockets. And for a moment, we saw millions of people get lifted out of poverty. We saw working people have a little more security to actually stand up for themselves, quit their jobs if they didn't like them, try to unionize if they could, or go on strike. There was a really big kind of social paradigm that was shifted. And now, we're trying to kind of claw that
we
back.
also lined
California
Delta's pockets, right? There was some industry-specific bailout.
right. I mean, that's how they were able to get the good stuff passed. That's how, unfortunately, this country often works to get any of the corporatists on either side of the aisle to sign on to a lot of these policies. They tend to be paired with corporate giveaways. I would much prefer a world where that wasn't the case, obviously. But I think Max's point is still true. We did see, child poverty cut in half, all of these enormous metrics going up that people, have been sitting around philosophizing about for years. Well, how do we bring poverty down? How do we do this, that, and the other? The answer was to put money in people's pockets and give them an ability to sustain themselves. That's what appears to be happening in California right now to some extent. And it's curious, Denise, why, to this question that Max is raising, even if you do believe that on a philosophical level, people who are undocumented shouldn't get benefits, get any benefits. Even though you might say, they pay $7 billion into Social Security that they don't get to take advantage of, even though they contribute to their society, the society that we all live in together, even if it inures to the benefit of society as a whole, for them not to be struggling destitute, that they, as a matter of principle, shouldn't be getting money. Do you think there's something to Max's point about what we center in these conversations if we really do want to bring a working class coalition together, given that so many people who are documented do have undocumented relatives, friends, people they know and love, who might be alienated from a working class movement by that sort of language, when there are these huge opportunities to talk about the much larger theft from society that's happening at the very top?
I cannot imagine how setting a standard that you must toe a single line in any way advances a working class coalition. The vast majority of America is working class, right? The middle class has been gutted in this country in large part because of trade deals and outsourcing and the like. And let's not negate the reality of the ways that illegal immigration, as well as outsourcing and legal migrants, right, actually do affect the wages of American citizens. We have elected officials like Senator Durbin, who says that depression of Americans' wages is actually a benefit to them. We can't have a working class coalition if we're only going to bring forth the points that advance a particular narrative. We have to talk about the whole thing, and all of it needs to be centered in immigration, legal and illegal, outsourcing. All of the things, including corporate profiteering, is a part of it, all of it. Otherwise, we're not having a real conversation.
Max, what do you say to this argument? Because I've heard some leftists talk about this. There are debates about the extent to which immigration, undocumented or otherwise, has a negative effect on the American worker. But the most credible argument to that end is that there is at the very bottom tier of the American workforce, people who are very marginal and represents a very small fraction of American workers, there is a somewhat of a negative effect caused by undocumented immigrants. Do you think as a left party, a working class movement, you have to at least acknowledge and have a conversation about that, even if your response to that reality wouldn't be to have draconian immigration policy? It might be, I don't know, a different kind of distributive policy. I mean, do you think that the left does itself a disservice by not acknowledging that reality, or at least that perception?
Yeah, I mean, like, for any issue, if we are pretending it doesn't exist, we are not being, honest and trying to actually come to solutions. Here's what I would say to everyone listening. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anyone on this panel. As I've been saying since I started my podcast years ago, listen to the workers. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of them. You can go hear their thoughts on this, on my podcast, on The Real News, in my book, right? And what work, the thing I would say is it's actually not that hard. Working people are smart. They're not dumb. They know how the bosses pit working people against one another, either by unionized workers against non-unionized workers, citizens against non-citizens, black workers against white workers, right? They have been dividing and conquering us for as long as this country has existed, and even before that. And here's the hopeful thing, is that if you have the honest conversation that we're talking about having here, which it is wrong to presume that people aren't having that, labor's been having this conversation for a long time. Mm-hmm. And if you actually look at unions like Labor's Local 79 in New York, they are showing the path forward. They are unionized citizen workers who are currently standing up for undocumented workers who are being exploited and taken advantage of by union busting contractors in the city. They are going to bat for them. They even created a fund to make sure that undocumented workers could recoup, benefits that the rest of us were able to during the pandemic, but undocumented workers were not, because they know when, the business class and, right-wing and liberal politicians who champion them target immigration as the issue hurting workers and suppressing wages. Working people know that what that means is that they do not want to stop illegal immigration. They want to enshrine a permanent class, a permanent underclass of undocumented workers that they can constantly exploit. If you look at the data, if you look at the research, that is what happens. Even under Trump's regime, they did not really push out the 10 million plus undocumented workers who are already here. They just made it harder for those workers to speak up on the job. They made it easier for bosses to exploit them, and they made it easier for companies and businesses to undercut other workers by relying on undocumented workers. So there is a left argument to this. It's being had. Look to the workers, look to organized labor. They're providing the path forward. It is not our job to punch down and blame the ways the ruling class is ripping all of us off on undocumented workers who are just trying to get by like the rest of us. I have no patience for that.
We cannot
we want to give you the last word, Denise, and Max obviously disagrees with you to your left. Just to throw an additional wrinkle, I kind of disagree with you, but from the right, I want more immigrants here working. The wages of the lowest of the lowest rung workers might have some negative consequences, but we can't live in the previous century just in order to artificially protect some people's wages and jobs, right? Because we need to build houses. We need to lower the cost of everything. The cost of things are out of control because we can't find workers to do things because it's too prohibitively expensive here for a variety of reasons, including regulation. But that's what I would say. We need immigrants so that we can have more houses. We can have the cost of things go down.
So part of that is which corporations are suffering from want of profits when you talk about costs, right? And so if we're talking about regulations, what we should be doing is enforcing the labor movement successes that American citizens have achieved for themselves and their progeny, if that is part of the problem. When you come to the United States of America illegally, you are recognizing that what you are getting as a result of being here outweighs the costs of your being here. That's part of the reason you're here. So you can pay remittances back to your home country and all of those types of things. I would say there are plenty of Americans who would like to work. Look at the study from California about Black men who lost their job during COVID, Southern California, and didn't have another job even though they were looking. There are 50 some odd million Americans who are wanting to have a job but cannot. There are ways that ethnic unions, right, led by immigrants, do not hire Black Americans. For example, I don't know about other Americans, probably so, but the reality is you should not be here in the first place. And by being here, you purchase, you do those things where you get taxed. That's the cost of being here without permission and consent illegally.
Four very
Hire
different
Americans,
opinions
enforce our
on this
border.
issue. So we're happy to present that debate. Max, Denise, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Take care.
And we'll have more Rising after this.